end of the quarter, which is on October 30th. On this calendar, we provided 2 weeks for almost 2 weeks, 8 days. I had to pull out my sheet here, but 8 days for the winter break. So the Mason move day would be on the 22nd. Christmas is noted with the diamond, which would be on the 25th. And the holiday would run through Friday the 1st. Mason's move day, their second move day, would be on January 4th. That's why on January 4th we have that capital M signifying Mason as well as Henderson's move. Now in January, we had a lot of conversation around January. And so if you look toward the latter part, the third week of January, we have an H on the 18th, a TW on the 19th, and an H on the 20th. And so reason being is that the 18th is going to be a holiday. The 19th is going to be a teacher work day. And then the 20th is inauguration day. And so the decision around that was based upon the conversation of having a holiday and then having off for inauguration day and then having that day in between. And the meaningfulness of having students be off on Monday, come to school on Tuesday, and then be off again on Wednesday and come back on Thursday. So the continuity of that. And you will see that in other calendars as well. In February, on the 15th, we have President's Day. In March, you can see we have a lot of white space on the calendar, which indicates that we don't have breaks during that time. So the last week of February through the second week of March. In the second week of March, we have an early release, which is a PD day. And then on the 26th of March, we have an end of quarter. So we don't have a full day there. And then we move into the spring break. And you see the H's there signify the days for spring break, which would be the 1st and 2nd of April, and then the 29th, 30th, and 31st of March. And then moving into May, again, you're going to see, although between the second full week of April and the end of May, you're going to see some diamonds there that signify religious holidays or major religious holidays, but you're seeing that white space, which would note that there aren't holidays that are being observed where the school system is off. Then we have Memorial Day on the 31st, which is that Monday, and then we have an early release and a graduation for June 2nd. And then we have an early release on June 8th with a teacher work day following that early release, with the year end for staff on the 9th of June. So that's, I wanted to just take a few minutes to walk you through the calendar. Again, we think that if you're using this draft sheet to do that comparison across the board with each of the days and the dates that the school system is on or students are in versus when students are out and teachers are in, it's much easier and quicker and more seamless to go across. But these are the 4 calendar options, and again, I want to reinforce the fact that there were a couple of iterations that came out based upon the work, because when the calendar groups initially came together, they worked on the puzzle pieces, we received feedback, we gave feedback within the ad hoc calendar committees. We had those presentations, and based upon all of the feedback, all of the considerations, all of the drivers, these are our 4 options that we're happy to deliver to the board. Thanks.
Stay right here because you're going to get to answer some of the questions too. Couple of things that I just wanted to make sure that we picked up on, because there were some questions that came up in the last meeting about separating spring break from the Easter holiday, because there are a lot of school systems that do that, and that was looked at, and the decision by the ad hoc committee was to not separate it because there's a lot of travel that goes on around that time to be with families. And then one last thing that might help you as you strategize thinking about these calendars, and it came, this is a suggestion from Mr. Anderson that maybe we'll refine our table here, is there are some items in here that are the same in all 4 calendars. So you could just go through and put a line through those, and you could just eliminate those as drivers in your decision making, and then what's left are just those things that are different. So it might help sort of pop what is different in each of those. But I want to again thank William for his leadership with the ad hoc committee, along with Kristen Michael. Marty Goodell was a big piece of that work as well, getting some of this together. But we would be happy to answer any questions that you might have about these, so you have a better understanding of the work that went into it, and then any questions that you might have about the calendars themselves. And I'll ask Marty if you wouldn't mind sort of jotting these questions down, just in case you guys don't write them on your notes. Yes, ma'am. I'll repeat the question.
So I guess my concern is for older students. As a mother of someone who's a junior and a senior currently, we use that time at the end of August for college visits. The colleges are in session, but we're not. And I'm not going to hide the ball on
Sure.
to the change. And that's one of the big reasons. It's really going to hurt, I think, our older students. That's valuable time for them. In addition, I'm very concerned, am I going to be put in a situation where I'm going to move my daughter into college, be there for my son at the beginning of the school year? So I'm wondering how that, if any thought was given to this consideration.
So the question was, and I'm going to paraphrase if I can. One was the end of the summer is oftentimes used for college visits. And so starting earlier could impact the ability to do college visits. And the second was, what about students that are going off to college and then having to pick, am I going to send my one kid to school and then take the other to college? And how do you reconcile that? So did that come up? Absolutely, it came up as part of the conversation. And I would only answer it this way, and it's not to be flip or anything, and so forgive me if it comes off that way, but because we're one of only 3 school systems in the entire region, we've been able to navigate with the other school systems about how they do that work, and they've been in contact, and we've been in contact with schools, particularly around the school visitation piece. That school visitation has worked out for the other school systems that start before Labor Day. More than 50% of the schools in Virginia start before Labor Day, so at least the colleges and universities in the state of Virginia, Commonwealth of Virginia, have adapted to that plan, because the majority of the school systems start before Labor Day. With respect to when school starts and making that choice, I wouldn't want to have to make that choice myself. I hear you. I am a parent of a college student, and I'm a parent of a junior in high school, and if I had to make that choice, that would be a hard one. My hope is that there would be some flexibility within the schedule. If you look, the earliest start is the 24th of August. I remember taking my daughter to school for the first time 3 years ago, and it was prior to that, so that was helpful. But if it is the 24th, I would say to you that as a school system, we care about your family, and we would work with you and your student who's in the system, if they came a couple of days or a day after school started, to make sure that they were caught up and they were part of our community if they missed the first day or first 2 days because they had to go to college. So we would support you in making the decision to take your child to college and taking their sibling with you, so that they could, say goodbye.
other years, it's going to be much earlier than that, maybe as early as the, I guess.
So that's a good question. So you're right. You're right. This is the earliest start date possible, and it was in order to try to meet that June 15th end of the year deadline. But you raise another question that I want to be really clear about too, and that is that we revisit the calendar every year, and just because we're starting, if it's selected, we're not, it sounds like we've selected, we haven't selected. If that is the choice to start before Labor Day, it doesn't mean that every year we're going to start 2 weeks before Labor Day. In fact, it doesn't even mean that we would start before Labor Day every year. We would revisit the calendar every year to see what makes the most sense. The issue that we face, I think, in this calendar is that Labor Day is the absolute last day that Labor Day can occur, and so the first day would be September 8th. And so trying to meet the needs of trying to end by the middle of June, and the fact that we have the flexibility for the first time ever sort of was the perfect opportunity to at least explore the option. Yes, ma'am.
So right now, we're not gonna get the decision until December, really, really late. In the past, it's always in December, but usually, after Labor Day, so it's not really. People allow international people to here, fly back to the country, and as general people, have family time together in August. Can there be a, much earlier calendar,
Yeah. We've really tried to put a schedule together to do it as early as we possibly could. We recognize we have a lot of international students. We also recognize some people have made plans potentially for leading up to Labor Day, and that's why we were trying to do it as early as possible. We know in the first year that there's going to be some difficulties. And there's going to be some rough patches. There's going to be some students that may be here a day after school starts or a couple days after school starts. What I can commit to you is, from an operational perspective, is we will work with families where that's an issue and ensure that their students come in and have a very smooth transition when they start. So could we do a 2-year calendar? We've talked about that as a possibility. I don't know that we could do it this year, but next year we could potentially do a 2-year calendar. That makes a lot of sense to me. So, yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, I'd be open to exploring that as an option for sure. Yes.
My question is more for the teachers.
Yeah.
I guess, depending on which calendar is chosen before or after Labor Day, like which calendar will retain most teachers and which calendar will.
Yeah.
For me, I can take off whenever I want. I would just take my kids to college. I can take off next week, but retaining the teachers.
Yeah.
Is hard, especially in Northern Virginia, because they work with the best district. I think this is the best district in the state, and they could leave tomorrow and go to any school, and retaining them, unfortunately, is, for me, the most important thing, because
Yep.
they're educating our kids.
So the question was, and I forgot to repeat your question, I'll repeat the question this time, is around teacher retention. And yeah, no, it's a great question, and it's one that we've certainly wrestled with, and we talked about it in our first meeting that we had, our community meeting, when we looked at the demographic data of where our staff lives, and the vast majority of our staff don't live in the City of Falls Church. And so staff that have children that don't live in Falls Church are beholden to the calendar in other places. And what we've heard actually from some of our staff is by aligning our calendar with other nearby school divisions actually will help us retain some of our staff. And so we'll know, though, the way that the survey has been put together, you identify, are you a staff member that lives in the City of Falls Church? Are you a staff member who doesn't live in the city?